Welcome back, you guys. I'm Tassie, and this is going to be one of my ghostly update vlogs. Now, in my previous video, I had mentioned about when I did a ceremony for a girl and her father had passed away, and when I actually encountered her father in the spirit world. And this episode is really going to be talking about that and a few details about the whole event. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. Now, a few things to keep in mind for like a background for when I did this ceremony. First off, this was a girl who actually married into a family, and her and her husband lived with his older brother, and his older brother also was a shaman, and they also ordained. Now, for some reason though, the brother and his wife, the girl who I ended up doing the ceremony for, they actually came to me and asked me to do a ceremony for her. She was going through a lot of things in her life. She was actually supposed to be a shaman as well. Another background to this too. So she has some of the clairvoyance where she can sense things, know things, gut feelings, she'll hear voices and everything like that. So she also had that as well. She was not a practicing shaman though. Now, for her story though, she had like a miscarriage, and it was basically like a lot of stuff that would happen. Excuse me there. It was basically a lot of stuff that had happened to her. I just finished eating, you guys. I had a lot of sugar in me, so I'm a little crazy. All right, sorry. But so a lot of stuff had happened to her, and she wanted me to shy her and just to see what's wrong with her and everything like that. And they needed to have a ceremony done. There was also a demon at the house. Oh, so that's a lot of the backstory. So, anyways, for me, typically, in case you guys don't know this, whenever a shaman is going to do a task, all right, your spirit guides will always tell you if it's something you can actually do before you agree to it, okay? And then on top of that, typically for myself, whenever I'm going to do a ceremony for somebody, I'll always have a dream the night before or a couple nights before. And whatever happens in my dream, like if I fail in my dream, because there's always a demon that chases you, right? If you defeat the demon in your dream, it means that when you go and do your ceremony, you'll have the strength and energy and you'll be able to defeat it. And then you'll win the ceremony, basically. Now, of course, if the demon hurts you, then you need to call off the ceremony. You have to tell the people that you can't do the ceremony anymore, etc. So I did have a dream like that, and everything went fine. Of course, I defeated the demon. So then I went to the ceremony, and it was really hard because when I got to the point where, all right, let's start over. So starting over, as far as like ceremonies, for whenever you're a shaman and you're doing a ceremony, your spirit guides will tell you what you're supposed to do in the spirit world. And a lot of it has to do with, if there's something like, it's kind of like a door opens and you see everything about the person, starting from when they're a child, all the way up. And then you can even see beyond the current time span, you can see beyond, which is like into their future as well. So some ceremonies that take forever, you guys, it's because the shaman had to do a lot of stuff. And sometimes the shaman has to do a lot of chants to get them to the right place. So, and that goes to like different Ning styles, like different lineages for shamans, what is required of your type. So it's basically chants and passages to get you on. And then when you're in these, when you're going in your journey, you may run across different entities, and they're not always going to be good entities. It could be a ghost or a demon in the spirit world, and sometimes it has something to do with the person, sometimes it doesn't. It just depends on the place you go to. So for an example, let's say I went and did a ceremony for you to fix you, and then they tell me there was this point in your life when you were a child, and something really bad happened to you with people around you, and your spirit at that point had left you, and you actually became depressed, but you hid it from everybody. So you didn't tell anybody that this tragic or horrible thing happened to you when you were a kid. So whether it was like you being bullied or something, or something really embarrassing happened to you, so you get bumply is what we call where you lose a spirit. So I would go and I would find that spirit, right? And then sometimes where you left your spirit, sometimes there's actually what I always reference in my other videos, ituju. So it's basically an owner of that area where your spirit went to. So then I would have to present myself to the ju, and then I would have to say, this is why I'm here. I'm going to go in here. I'm only going to do this and this. So I'm not going to like go into your house and go through all your drawers and your fridge. You know, I'm just going to go into this one room, and that is supposed to be mine. I have every right to take that thing, right? Sometimes though, the Jew may say no, all right? They're going to want like money, or they're going to want you to do another task for them. And sometimes they'll even be really angry and try to do something to you too. So there's a lot of, you know, what ifs and everything like that that could happen in the spirit world. And they don't just always freely give you passage. Sometimes though, especially if you're a higher up shaman in your levels, which there are a lot of shamans, you guys, who are of a higher level. Sometimes though, they'll just let you pass because you have the authority in the spirit world. And that's why you don't have to fight as much. But that's not always the case, okay? So then what happens, then I would go and get your spirit, right? I would actually call it, and sometimes there's special chance to call them to get up and everything. And then even then, sometimes the spirit there will want something in exchange. And so it's a lot. But anyways, so that I would finally capture that spirit, and then I would take it with me as I continue on in my journey. So, and then as I keep going, you guys, it's like an RPG. Seriously, for anybody who's into gaming, because I play a lot of video games, so it's just like an RPG. There's a lot of different journeys and levels you have to go through, and there's a lot of different things you have to do in between there. There are side tasks that you have to do as well, not just the main journey you're supposed to be on. All right. So, anyways, so for this girl, you know, I end up reaching a point where I come across her father, and her father has passed away. And I mentioned in a previous video that, you know, whenever someone passes, you know, for Hmong people, we believe in reincarnation. So typically there's going to be 3 spirits. All right. So one spirit is going to be the one that watches the grave or stays with the family. All right. So this is the spirit that you can pray to, you can talk to, you can go to the grave and like give them food and all that stuff like that. So that's one spirit. The other spirit is the one that goes off to get reincarnated and reborn, okay? And then the last spirit is the one that goes back up to the spirit world because they have a task, they have a job, etc. So I've always mentioned to you guys about how you differentiate a shaman by their levels. It's based off of who they are in the spirit world when they are reborn. And that's why you'll have some shamans who aren't considered as high only because they were not a reincarnation of a god or a god's child or something like that. That's why. Anyways, so the girl, when her father passed away, I kept seeing in her life, every time she was sad, every time she went through something traumatic or she felt alone, and she had a lot of depression issues too, because she had the type of huring that were very talkative to her. Those types can put you into a lot of depressions. And, you know, people just kind of like brushed her off. They didn't really consider her a lot. But then because she was so sad in her life, she would always call to her father. And her father passed away when she was younger. So because she always called to him, it was the one at the Nza, which is, you know, the spirit at the cemetery. So when you call that spirit to come to you, so typically they are not the same person. And I mentioned, you know, if I ever saw a loved one, seriously, I had too much sugar. So if I ever saw a loved one and they appeared right before me, I would be petrified, you guys, like, because I know they are not the same person from when they were alive. So you want to keep that in mind. I'll go into that later about like how you could tell. Anyways, so what I was saying was, so she kept calling that spirit to come to her. And what happens if you're really, really sad and you keep calling to them, if the spirit reaches out and touches you, like we would call it pluka, which is like when they're patting you, like brushing your head or patting your back just to make sure you're okay. And when you're really depressed like that, you also become like, I keep thinking of the word vortex, but it's like you become like this door for other spirits to come to you, because then you're really easy prey. Your spirit is really low, so it's easy for a spirit, like another ghost or a demon, to come and attach itself to you. which we all know is not a good thing. So she kept doing that though. So she kept calling her father to come to her. She kept calling, wanting his protection, wanting him to be with her so she's not lonely, which I understand to a point, but she held on to him to like a kid level. And when I say a kid level, she never grew up and accepted his death and accepted that he's in a better place now. That, you know, and she hung on to him like the kid she was back then when he passed away. She just never was able to learn to move on. And I'm not saying move on like, oh, they're dead, forget about it. It's just, you know, like when someone passes away, you do get to a point where you know you need to be healthy for yourself to keep moving on, because that's what they would want for you. She just held on like he had passed away just yesterday. So it was really, really bad for her health. And so it got to the point where I was supposed to, whenever a shaman encounters the deceased, a ghost or a demon on the other side, our only job is to always kill and destroy, because they are blocking our path. They are not supposed to be there. We have every right to do this to them. All right. And it was really, really hard, because when I reached the point where I saw her father, she was like cooking in the kitchen, but then she sensed it because she's supposed to become a shaman too. She came running into the room because I was doing my stuff in the living room and she was in the kitchen on the other side of the house. She came running and she just started bawling and she just kept crying and crying. She didn't say anything though, but I could feel her there. And then my spirit guides were so angry at me because they were like, just kill him. Just get it over with. Like, we are in a rush. We have things to do. And I stopped because I couldn't kill him. I couldn't do it because, you know, I could feel all of her emotions that she was going through. And I knew if this is something that I had done, it would kind of like make it worse for her. She already still suffered such a hard time losing her dad, even though she was like in her 20s. And, you know, he passed away when she was like under 10 years old. And so she was just having such a hard time with it. And I knew I couldn't do this. Like, my spirit guides were so angry because it's like, it's really easy to just destroy him. So they're like, but they can't move unless I tell them to. And so I was like, oh my God. And I told them, I was like, I can't do this. Like, I can't do it. And they were like, you know, this is what you're born to do. This is your only task. This is, you don't have a choice in this. You know, I was like, because they're like, you know, you can't bring him back alive. And I was like, no, like, and then all of a sudden the thought came to me where I knew I had to hide her. So even though it was very, very tragic, I ended up hiding her from the spirit, from her father, so he could never find her again. And so it doesn't matter how many times she calls for him, he will never, ever be able to see her. Like, so I don't know if that was worse than just, I don't really know. I mean, it's kind of like, what would you have done? Like, you know, if these spirits in the heavens is telling you this is your job, this is what all you're supposed to do. And then you have this girl who's like crying that I'm going to like kill her, the spirit of her father. It's just, I couldn't do it. I just couldn't do it. So I hid her. I hid her from him. And you know, if one day she becomes a shaman, which she's currently not a shaman, but if she ever becomes one, she could go back into the spirit world. But then if she ever became a shaman, she would end up going to visit the real father that she really needs to. Which brings us to our next part. So the real spirit who you should be seeking out, and those who actually see the spirit of the deceased person, all right? If it's ever, okay, so like, okay, so, you know, like how they talk about like guardian angels, right? Like when you have like a parent who passed away, you feel like they're just watching you, they're protecting you, you know, that is a good one. Like if you ever happen to see them, if they are glowing, like glowing, you guys, that's how you know that that is the good spirit version. If you ever see it and they look like they're dead, literally, like, you know, if you've ever had to go to a funeral or anything like that and you've seen a body in a casket, if it looks like that, if they have no expression and they're just staring at you, especially if they can't move like normal, they're kind of like just like really like it's like really sharp movements, you know, like that is not the spirit you want to talk to. Oh my god. So like I once had an experience where somebody's father who passed away, and I went to go and see them. This is when I learned about the spirit at the cemetery. I remember I went to go see that spirit in the spirit world, and he was talking to me like anybody else, and my spirit guides kept telling me that I had to hide myself. I had to hide myself. But I was kind of like, I was really new at this, you guys. I was like on my second level, and I didn't understand. So I was just kind of like, you know, because I thought it was the good spirit. So literally, I was like there at the cemetery, and I was like talking to the spirit, asking it questions, right? And what happened next was the spirit, I kept watching the spirit kept walking around the room, you know, like of the deceased. He kept walking around the room, and I'm like, what's he doing? And he keeps talking to me, and he keeps like saying normal stuff. They'll talk like normal, but it doesn't have like, you know, like how I'm kind of animated. It doesn't have any of that. It's just kind of like, hey, so what are you doing right now? You know, it's kind of like that. It's just so. And then I was, because I was asking it questions because he had passed away, and I was asking him questions. And then all of a sudden, and my Khoa kept telling me, you have to hide yourself. All of a sudden, what happened? This was the worst, one of the worst experiences, probably the worst. What happened was he grabbed me, and I have the ability for the deceased to go through me, and like a vessel. You know, like how there are some that you guys hear about, like there are some types of people who can talk to the dead, and they'll like sit at a table with like a magic lamp. I don't really know what they look like. I'm just making this up based off of what I've seen in movies. But you know, like, and then like, it's like a seance. There you go. It's like a seance. And then like the ghost takes over their body, you know, like, so I discovered I have that ability. But he captured me. He grabbed me by both of my arms, and he came through me. And it was the worst feeling in the world, you guys. My whole body was in pain. And I was in the spirit world. I was still what we call oneng. Like there was sharp pain all over my chest. It was spreading everywhere. I was trying to push him out of my body. This is kind of scary now. Anyways, yeah, I remember that. And I remember, everything that spirit had felt. Like everything he had felt. Like one of the things that I hate is when a spirit pushes their emotions onto me, because I can't tell if it's my own or if it's the spirit. And whenever it is the spirit, I get really irate because I don't like things like that being pushed on me, especially if it's not my own. So I felt everything he felt, all this like anger and resentment at things that he hadn't finished, and all the messages he wanted to come out, but it was just really negative stuff. So then finally my spirit guides, they came, and then they pushed it out of me. And that's how I was able to escape. And then it was like a whirlwind of like, it was like really, really crazy. And then I had to like cleanse myself really, really well in the spirit world, because that ghost had came in through me. That was my vessel. Anyways, I was the vessel. So, again, later on, further on into the future, I actually went back and I saw that individual who had passed away, and he was completely different. He was glowing, and I was in the heavens, and then that was actually the one I should have gone to see. So that's what I also mean about how people talk about, you know, like guardian angels. You will feel that. That is real. That is the good spirit that you should be looking for and talking to. Not if you like ever see it, and especially if it's like one of those ghosts that it's in a loop. It's just doing its own thing. It doesn't notice you, and it's just passing you by. Even those, don't call out for it, okay? Don't try asking it for help. And that goes hand in hand with people who burn incense sticks and money. Because sometimes, like, when I was a kid, whenever my mom would go on, like, long road trips, she would burn incense sticks and money for, like, the ancestors to watch over us on our road trip. I don't really think if it worked a lot, because when we were younger, we've gotten into a lot of car accidents. All of us have always survived. But, yeah, I don't know, like, we went off the road many times. Anyways, so what I was saying though is that, you know, like, so people who like burn money and incense sticks for spirits and stuff like that, that is a form of black magic. So in my next video, this is getting long, I'll talk about like black magic, why animal sacrifices are used, and different new methods that are coming out now. So I'll talk about that in the next video. But you know, that does work if you decide to use black magic. It's really just black magic again. It is something that can be taught. If you're a shaman, you can also do it yourself. Your spirit guides will teach you if you will have that capability. All right, you guys. So that's pretty much it for this video. I just really wanted to talk about like what happened with that spirit and the differences really between the good ones and the bad ones of those who have deceased. And I don't ever want to see one in front of me, even if it's an angel. Okay, like just hide yourself in the background. I'll be okay with that. All right, you guys. Thanks for watching.